In this class, the topic is inflation, definition, causes. Inflation, definition, and causes of the inflation. So, inflation is an important concept in macroeconomic analysis. Today, many countries in the world facing the problem of inflation tendencies. Inflation is not to only affect the economic life and welfare of the people, but also affect the stability of the government. So modern governments taking the many policies are the measures to control the inflation tendencies in the world. So when coming to the definition, there is a general definition is there. Rise in the general price level of goods and services is known as inflation. Rise in the general price level of goods and services is known as inflation. Next one, Gardner-Upler definition is there. Inflation. A persistent and appreciable rise in the general price level is known as inflation. So it is nothing but rising the price level is known as inflation. Next one, Dalton definition is there. So too much money chasing the too few goods is known as inflation. What is too much money chasing the too few goods is known as inflation. So in the economy, the supply of money is very more. At the same time, if the supply of money is very more, at the same time, if the supply of goods and services are very less, so that leads to what is? That leads to the increase in the general price level, which is known as inflation tendencies. Which is known as inflation tendencies. And also one more general definition is there. Increasing the price level with increasing rate is known as the inflation. Increasing the price level with increasing rate is also known as the inflation. Causes of the inflation. So these causes are broadly divided into the two factors. One is factors causing the increase in demand. Factors causing the increase in demand. Nothing but demand side factors. Nothing but demand side factors. Next one, second is factors causing the supply side. Factors causing the supply side. It is nothing but supply side factors. Supply side factors. So when coming to the demand side factors, first one is rise in money supply. What is rise in money supply? If the supply of money is more in the economy, it leads to increase in aggregate demand. If the supply of money is more in the economy, it leads to increase in aggregate demand. Finally, it leads to the increase in the general price level and emerging the inflation conditions in the economy. So what is supply of money is also one of the factors for the rising the inflation conditions in the economy. Next one, increase in the public expenditure. What is increase in the public expenditure? What is public expenditure? So in the modern world today, the expenditure of the governments are going to increasing. Expenditure of the government is going to increasing. So that the expenditure of the government is nothing but it is the income of the population. It is the income of the population. When the income of the population is increased with increase in the public expenditure, that leads to the increase in the aggregate demand. That leads to the increase in the aggregate demand. So it leads to the increase in the general price, which is known as inflation tendencies, which is known as inflation conditions. So here what is increase in the public expenditure is also one of the factor for the inflation tendencies in the economy or the inflation conditions in the economy. So public expenditure is also play a very important role in rising the price level in the economy. Next one is increase in the consumer expenditure. Increase in the consumer expenditure. So consumer character of the expenditure character of the consumer is also one of the factor. What is if the consumers are uses much expenditure from their income, from their personal income, that is also leads to the increase in general price level. Increase in general price level and emerging the inflation conditions in the economy. And also there is a Gunnar Myrdal is there. Gunnar Myrdal in his Asian drama, he stated what is demonstration effect plays a very important role in the developing countries. What is following the characteristics of the rich countries by poor countries or the developing countries is known as the demonstration effect. So for example, I like to tell you what is before 15 years back, around 15-20 years back, there is no expenditure on the birthdays. There is no the expenditure on the marriage parties. There is no the expenditure on the weekends and all these things. So, but presently, if you see in the present, there is a much expenditure on this. Even the poor section people also, poor poverty level people also, they are using some expenditure on this. So, it is not the tradition of India. It is the tradition of Western countries which led to increase our individual expenditure. So, here what is increase in the consumer expenditure is also one of the factor for inflation. Next one, monetary policy or the cheap monetary policy also one of the factor. What is monetary policy also influence the inflation conditions. That is easy monetary policy, cheap monetary policy affect the general price level in the economy. So if under the monetary policy, if the rate of interest is decreased, that affects the expansion of the more credit facilities, So here the investments are going to increase. The investments are going to increase. So which leads to the increase in income level, employment level, income level, and purchasing power of the population. Finally, increase in the aggregate demand. So finally, it leads to the increase in the general price level, and finally it leads to the inflation tendencies in the economy. So likewise, what is the monetary policy also one of the factors for the inflation tendencies in the economy. Next one, deficit financing is also one of the factor. What is deficit financing is also one of the factor. What is the deficit financing here? So most of the developing countries, underdeveloped countries, they are following the deficit finance. So economists also giving the suggests these developing countries follow the deficit finance. So what is the deficit finance? When the public revenue is very less than the public expenditure, then governments follow the deficit finance. So during the time of deficit finance or the deficit budget, the governments borrow the money from the different sources, from the available sources. That is internal and external sources. That may be internal and external sources. So here it leads to what? More investments in the economy. The supply of money will going to increase. And also next one, during the deficit finance, the new currency may be printed. Printing of the new currency is also comes under the deficit financing. So all these things, borrowing the money from the other countries are the domestic internal and external sources, and also printing of new currency may lead the increasing the general price level in the economy. Next one, growth rate of the population or the growth of the population. So it is a long run factor. Growth of the population is long run factor. More population demand more goods and services. What is more population demands more goods and services? But particularly in case of highly populated countries or the huge populated countries, so these countries are unable to provide the goods and services to the increasing population. So it leads to what is increasing the price level for the existing goods. So there is a scarcity of goods takes place in case of these countries where more population. So that the prices of the existing goods will going to increasing. So which leads to inflation tendencies in the economy. For example, if you see what is America population around 31 crores, Japan population 12 crores, okay, India population 130 crores. What to see, and likewise, what is the population demands more goods, population demands more services. Okay, so that this is also one of the reason. What is the growth rate of the population, which is long run factor. So if there is any burning problem in our country, particularly poverty, unemployment, income inequalities, or expansion of the different diseases in the country, so these are all the burning income inequalities. These are all the burning issues in our country. So here one of the major factor, one of the prime factor is what is growth of the population. Population is one of the factor. Population is also one of the factor. Here, for the inflation tendencies in the economy, growth of the population is also one of the factor. Next one, when coming to the factors from the supply side. So one is shortage of the factors of production. What is shortage of the factors of production? So availability of the factors of production is also affect the prices of the general goods and services. What is, if the availability of factors of production is very less, so then that leads to the less production in the economy. Shortage of the production in the economy, so that there is a prices will going to rise for the availability production for the existing goods in the economy. So if the factors of production, availability of these factors of production is abundant fully, that may not be lead in the increasing of the price level. And also one more side, availability of the less factors of production is cause for the less production, and availability of the less factors of production is also cause for the demands this less factors of production more prices, which causes for the increasing the cost of production, finally which causes for the increasing the general price level in the economy. Likewise, shortage of the factors of production is also one of the cause for rising the price level in the economy. So industrial dispute, next is industrial disputes. So in certain industries, there is a strong unions may take place, labor unions may take place. So sometimes they are going to fight for their rights. So it leads to what is strikes, lockouts may take place. So if these strikes and lockouts continuously appear in the industrial area, so it leads to low production of those industries, and scarcity of goods takes place. That leads to the increase in the general price level. Otherwise, if there is a harmony relations takes place, a peaceful relations are appeared in the industrial area, that may not disturb the industrial production. So that industrial disputes is also one of the factor for rising the price level or inflation. Next one is natural calamities. So natural calamities is also one of the factor. What is the natural calamities? Flood, famine, drought, earthquakes. Okay, all these are the natural calamities. So during these natural calamities, the production will going to automatically decline. So that leads to what is scarcity of production takes place. So that leads to the increasing the price level to the existing commodity, starting the what is inflation tendencies in the economy. So natural calamities is also one of them. Next one, particularly if there is what is in agriculture production, when we see if there is no more rains, no more good atmosphere for the agriculture, the production and productivity of agriculture will going to decreases. So that affects more on the prices of the agricultural commodities. Next one, artificial scarcity. So traders, business persons, sometimes they create a scarcity which led to the increase in price level. Next one, increase in exports. So this is also one of the factor. What is, when the country produces more goods for exports, then the goods in home country faces scarcity. So this is also one of the reasons. What is, we are exporting more goods to our countries, even we have much demand, but at the same time we are exported more goods to other countries. The home country faces the problem of scarcity. So that leads to the increase in the prices for the availability goods in the home country. Next one, international factor. International factor is also one of them. It is a worldwide phenomenon. What is? It is a worldwide phenomenon. When the prices are increased in the leading industrial countries, the dependent countries are faced the problem. When the prices are increased in the leading industrial countries in the world, the dependent countries on those countries face the problem of prices. For example, prices of raw material. If the price of raw material in those countries increased, that effect shows more in domestic countries or in our country. And also we see the sometimes price of the petrol, diesel. So all these are the mostly international factors. So these are the in the economy. Thank you for watching.